Hello and welcome to another episode of French Ear Trumpet. I'm Andy from AJ in France, joined as usual by Colin from French Countryside Live. Once a week, normally, we try and get together and chat about stuff that interests us, stuff that's in the news, or sometimes we have guests on to talk about subjects. So this week we're going to do a little chat, general chat, but we're going to focus on stuff that we can do here in France or that you're able to do in France that you can't do in the UK. Maybe the same in America. I don't know. But before any of that, go on.
I'll just say you can see a doctor. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, there are stuff like that. Yeah, that we'll get to. Firstly, I just want to do a shout out to one of both of our channel's biggest viewers. And I don't think his channel gets enough publicity, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's Hugh from Wouldn't It Be Nice, link in the description. And he got in contact with me and he shared some photos of some of the stuff that he's prepared for a new gallery he's exhibiting his stuff in and selling. And you can buy his stuff. It looks amazing. And there's loads of it. He's really, really good at what he does. And it's one of those channels where you watch it because he is just so passionate about what he's doing. It's insane, and it's that above everything else. So the videos are him literally making the stuff. There's no talking nonsense or anything like that when he's doing it. It's literally raw footage of him making the stuff, and I love that. That appeals to me. So head on over to Hugh's channel and have a look there because it's very good, very good, and he always watches our channels as well.
He does.
I don't think we give him enough credit for that support.
He's often first, isn't
he? Yeah, the support you get from him. Well, he's that kind of bloke, so I'm happy to promote that as much as I can. Okay, so on to this episode. I wanted to do this episode, and I'll tell you why. So I work in a small company. But everyone I work with except one is younger than me, so that which is so bad. I mean, it wasn't that long ago since I was the youngest person there, and now, oh my God. Anyway, that's a different story. But out of all the people there, and they're all in their 20s, there's only one who's in his 30s. All of them in their 20s have their own home.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
And it struck me that in the UK, that would be extremely rare.
Unheard of, I think. I mean, the price of property here compared to the UK, certainly around the southeast. I don't know what sort of salary you would need in order to get a mortgage and the deposit that you would need in order to get a mortgage, in the southeast. In the UK, just ridiculous amounts of money. But yeah, property is a fraction of the price.
And there's something else, which I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I just want to talk about this a little bit because it's quite important. So I know a lot of people that live in the south of England, around London, in the home counties and places like that. So they have got kids and they're approaching 20 years old. Some a lot older than that, approaching 30. None of them have their own home.
No.
And if they're likely to get one or buy, when I say their own home, I mean buy, I don't mean rent.
Yeah.
The likelihood of them getting it would rely on mum and dad basically giving them a load of cash or buying a house with other people. And that's the only way they can afford it. But here it's not the same.
What do you think, just to go off on a tangent, curiously, what do you think the end game of that is? I mean, how is that going to end? It just doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, property prices go up and down over a longer time period from the peak to peak than most other investments. And they always do recover. But, there's got to be that dip where a generation can then buy the houses. if no one can afford to buy the houses, then nobody buys them, so people lower the prices. If there isn't the people there to buy the houses, then the price will have to come down. But it's also triggered by other stuff, global
But
events.
then, following that, that would mean that you'd have a whole generation going into negative equity, wouldn't you?
A lot of people would, yeah. Because now, if you're buying a house now, well, the interest rates as well are massive compared to. I mean, when I bought a house, I bought my first flat when I was 17, and it's not because I had loads of money, because I didn't. I was being paid like £800 a month or something like that. But even then, you could get 110% mortgage, no problem, and they really didn't care what you were buying.
Yeah.
So they would literally just. I remember on the first flat I bought, they said, "Oh, we want to do a valuation," and the flat was only worth 35 grand. It's probably worth, I guess, closer to 200 now. But at the time, it was only worth 35 grand. And I rang them back up. I said, "Have you done the valuation?" They went, "Oh yeah, we did a drive-by valuation."
Yeah.
Which basically means, yeah, whatever. You can have the money.
I don't care really.
This was 1997, so you're in the peak of the easy money period. So in the 80s and 90s, banks would just give you money as much as you wanted for very little. I mean, you could take out as many loans as you wanted, and very little, shall we say, endeavours were made into your actual financial circumstances.
Yeah.
And so that meant there was loads of my generation that bought these cheaper properties, and then just got on the ladder. And once you're on the ladder, move up and up and up. But in the 90s, early 2000s, up till 2007, you're just making money and easy to buy houses. As soon as you get to the financial crisis, everything changed. So then after that, you had to really prove that you could afford a house.
That's right.
Because that was the whole problem, what caused the financial crisis, not in England specifically.
In America, with the subprime mortgages,
Yeah, so you could just buy with virtually no checks, sign onto a mortgage where you're paying an amount back, and they just couldn't afford it. So people then sold those debts on, but then mixed them up with debts that were good. So it's like a sandwich of debts, and then they sent them up, and then eventually they all defaulted, and they just couldn't keep up with the defaults. Right. So so
we're just talking about subprime mortgages.
Yeah. So that led to the financial crisis, and since then it's been more difficult.
Yeah.
But also, the problem now in the UK is that the house prices have gone up massively, but people's wages haven't caught up to a massive factor. So you're looking at 5 or 6 times your salary, where you'll need basically 5 or 6 times your salary, as opposed to before, when you could just buy it a lot cheaper than that.
Yeah. So, how this relates to where we are in France is that it really is a one-way ticket. Once you sell up in the UK and come to France, unless you've got other finances in place, you won't be selling your house in France to go back to the UK and get the same level of house that you left.
No, definitely not. I mean, but you can't have everything. I mean, you can't have the fact you sell your house for loads in the UK and you come over and buy a house here, mortgage free, and have some cash there, and then expect to go back.
Exactly.
And be in that position.
Yeah. I just wonder how many people are, take it into account and realise it is a one-way ticket. So, in terms of, in terms of property.
Yeah. And the property thing here is much more regulated. In that, to buy a house, you have to really prove, and it's always been the case. You have to prove you can afford the payments on the mortgage and whatnot. So I think it's 30% of your salary is the maximum you're allowed to take out in a mortgage or a loan. But they take all of your loans into account. So if you went in and you bought let's say, you wanted to buy a house and you wanted 20% of your wages to pay for the repayments every month, they would look at that and say that's fine. But if you had another car loan, for example, that did 15% of your wages every month and it's done on a monthly basis, and they'd say no because you're 5% over that limit. And that's very strict. Also, the taxes when you buy a house and the fees are quite substantial, much more than they are in the UK. So that stops people from trying to flip houses quickly, because you lose a lot on the fees and that sort of stuff.
Sure.
So it deters a lot of flipping of houses, and that's really.
I mean, it's just not that sort of culture, is it? I mean, we've talked about it before, and that people buy a house here when they get married, or or before, like you said, in their 20s. They go into the house, they decorate it, they cover every surface in wallpaper, and go, right, that's it, done. Never have to do that again. And
yeah,
and then they just live there till they die.
Yeah, that's it. I just want to refer back to a previous guest we had on, Glenn, who was saying that this house flipping is becoming a thing, and that some of the Americans are buying houses, and before they've even bought them, is putting them back on the market with an increased margin. So I think I'm not really a fan of that. I think that's just profiteering at the expense of other people, which I don't particularly like.
So would that be aimed back at the American market then?
Probably. People who can afford it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not the locals. And there are a lot of people escaping America at the moment. A lot. Daily now. Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, we in one of our previous videos, I found some research that showed that I think 2023 or 24 was the first year that there was more long-term visas going to Americans than Brits.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, the Americans are just all over Facebook, all of the expat groups, everything. It's all, well, I would say, way over 50% American now, I think. Well, I mean, why would you not want to come? We all did, so. But it's interesting to see. But like the flipping of houses, that pushes the price up for everybody, and that was one of the big problems in the UK. Just before we move off property, one last thing. One thing you can do here very early on in life, which you can't do in England, is build your own house.
Okay.
So one of the guys, he's 27. He's got a wife and a kid, and he's building his own house. And he's able to do it because of the system in which it's done here is completely different to the UK. So the land in the UK is incredibly expensive. If you find building land that you can build on, it's probably out the reach of 90% of the people in the UK, unless you're wealthy or a developer. And if the developer hasn't got it through a back channel from an estate agent, there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
Because being in the building industry, I used to work for these people, the property developers, and I also had good contacts in the estate agents, and they say 90% of the land doesn't even make it to the market. There's someone in the estate agents, rings up the property developer, says, I've got this land, this is the minimum you'll take.
There's a finder's fee, yeah.
And there's a finder's fee. And it happens so much, you wouldn't believe. You know, I've actually been there when it's been talked about between the estate agent and the developer, me as a contractor is. And I just, it's quite disheartening.
Mind you, there is a lot more land here, isn't there?
Not buildable land. Well, yeah, maybe. But the system is completely different. So, for example, in my village, a plot which used to be pretty vacant, we would call it a brownfield site. It was an old storage lot for the Mary.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they took the land and said, right, we're going to zone it out for building, if you like. And they built, first thing they built, the Mary said, right, we're not going to do any houses on here till we build an old person's home.
Nice.
So we're going to build that for the residents because they're all getting older, etc., etc. So they're going to do that first. And it's right in the middle of the town. And then they said the rest of it, we're going to parcel up into land and you come to us. You buy the land that, and I think it's something silly, like to buy a plot's about 40 grand.
Mm.
And then you go and find a constructor, builder, who will build you that house.
Mm.
So in the UK, a large company like Red Row or whoever, Barratt, buys the land, builds the houses, and you go and buy the houses off them.
Mm.
In France, you buy the land and you go and find a building company to build you the house.
Yeah, there's all sorts of companies around here. There's probably 2 or 3 of the main ones that their job is just to build houses.
Yeah.
Individual houses.
Yes, and that's an actual thing. There's loads around here as well.
Mm.
In Wren, so you buy the land, and then you subcontract, or you not subcontract, but you engage a building company to put your house on.
Mm.
And that is quite interesting. You can build yourself if you want.
I wonder what the cost differences are between doing that and just buying a house.
It
Whether
depends.
it's similar or
Depends on the location,
mm.
and depends what you want. I mean, a lot of people who come to live in France want the stone property with the features and the wood and the wood fireplace and stuff like that. Then, you're not going to get that from a building company.
A lot of the French just like the single story
block built,
really well insulated, really efficiently heated. Yeah, that's what they want, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and you can understand why. For us, it's like, especially for me and you, houses and doing stuff to them is a passion. But don't forget that the vast majority of people just want somewhere comfortable and warm to live that doesn't cost £1 million a year to heat.
Yeah.
And they can get around and do their life and do their interests.
I can go and have lunch for 2 hours instead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, my boss is quite well off, and his house is inside. It's just normal. I mean, if you had the money, the first thing you do if you're British is do your house up.
Yeah.
But they don't. From what I've seen, it's tend to happen.
Well, I think it pretty much sums up that it's a completely different culture in that there's no real snobbery, is there? There's no real class wars here.
Just gonna say that.
Yeah, there's no real class wars here. So there's no. So a few examples. No one gives a monkey what car you drive.
No.
What state it's in. There's no personalised plates. I mean, in the past I've spent money on personalised plates because I'm a dick. but actually, I'll tell you a story about that. So I bought a Golf R32, which was the last of the big engine Golfs. It was a Mark V. They went from the on the Mark V Golfs. They went from the big engines to the much more tuned engines after that. So the R32 was the last of the real big engines. So it was a 3-litre 32 valve 4-wheel drive transmission jammed into a Golf, and it's fantastic car. One of the best cars I've ever owned, and it was proper sorted car as well. Everything was sorted on it, and it didn't have a very good registration. So I looked around, the usual portals, and I found a private because a lot of the number plates are sold by agents, aren't they? And a lot of them are sold direct from the DVLA, the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency.
They do auctions, don't they?
And auctions, exactly, yeah. Anyway, so I found it as a private sale, R32 BWL.
Nice.
And the guy obviously didn't know what he had. I think I paid about 150 quid for it.
Nice.
And I put that on the R32. I was well pleased with it. But when I put it on and looked at it, I thought, what a dick. But I don't care.
I'll tell you a story. I once had the registration C1DDC, and I bought C1DDS. So it doesn't sound like much, but if you look at the spacing slightly differently, CIDDC, CIDDS.
Yeah.
And I flogged them onto the required type of person for much more than what they were being sold for. No one could see what they were. But you could actually sell plates. That's bizarre.
Yeah. And remember, there's a friend of mine in the chauffeuring game. He had a really nice Viana, a Mercedes Viana, which was a like an upmarket people carrier, and he did a lot of private jet work for Signature and Wings, and the registration on his Viana was G9 Jet.
Nice.
So, G9 is a type of private jet, isn't it?
Yeah.
And G9 Jet, wicked.
Anyway,
sorry, at JLT, which was the big insurance brokers that I worked for, all of the we had 4 BMW 7 Series, and they all had private plates, all had JLT plates. Mine was Y9 JLT, and they had one that was they had a plate on retention, because there was we had 750s when I started there, but before I was there, they had the V12 7 Series, and one of the registrations on retention at JLT was V12 JLT.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Not sure what bothers you. Anyway, obviously getting a bit sidetracked as usual. So that was around property. That's something we can do in France. You were no hope of. I mean, my friends' children, no chance of them buying a plot of land and building their own house. Not a chance.
No.
Let alone when you've got a kid as well.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is send your kid to private school. Here, it's much cheaper. To go to a decent private school, it's about €900 a year.
You're joking. So why doesn't everybody do that?
Because it's not needed.
Yeah.
The educational standards do not really differ that much.
Yeah.
Most of them are religious schools, so Catholics mainly, but there are others as well. So yeah, that was what that figure is from what my brother's daughter, my niece, was for her last school term. If they wanted to go, they had their choice. And then I looked at how much it would be for a similar child in England, and the average is 30,000. And if you went to Eton, top end of the list, 52,000 a year for one child.
Yeah.
I mean, the difference there is massive because it's not needed. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Private school is one. I don't really know much more about it because I don't have any kids, so I can't really tell you any more about the school side of things. So yeah, that's it. Over here, if you get a job and you get a CDI contract, which is contract indeterminate end to your contract. So it's basically a full-time job. With a CDI, you can then apply for a mortgage more or less straight away because that's seen as an incredibly secure job. So that helps as well to buying your own house, if that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, that pretty much I've been speaking for a long time. What about stuff you can do here that you couldn't do in England? Or
well, certainly, just what I mentioned in jest earlier, you can see a doctor. You can you can access healthcare easily.
I just want to refer back to our guest that we had on, Faye.
Yeah.
Go and watch that episode because it's brilliant.
It's good.
Really, really knows her stuff.
Yeah,
so that's some interesting information there. But carry on. Sorry. Yeah.
No, just saying that the healthcare system isn't as broken as it seems in the UK. From what I've been told, it's virtually impossible to even see a GP.
I think things are slowly changing from some of the things that have been put in. It does, and the waiting list. If you look at the actual statistics, the waiting lists are coming down, but they are actually at the moment recruiting for corridor nurses in some hospitals. So these are nurses dedicated to looking after the patients in the corridor, not in beds.
Perfect.
Which is very interesting. Thing I've never seen, but it's the amount of hospitals is quite different. So I had an interesting conversation, and this is something else actually, which we'll get onto. Neighbours, we'll get onto that shortly.
Okay.
As something you can do here that you wouldn't normally do in England. But I went and spoke to my neighbour today and said, oh, look, I know someone who's going for an operation in Wren on just a minor operation. And he went, oh, right, okay. Where's that? Which hospital's that? And he named about 5 hospitals in one town.
Yeah.
And it's not a question of just saying, oh, that's the hospital in. So what I mean by that, in England, let's say, for example, York, for example, probably going to have 1, maybe 2.
Yeah, and that'll cover a vast catchment
massive
area. Yeah, and there'll be a massive hospital, but that'll cover a vast catchment area. Whereas, where we are, we got Conflont Hospital down the road, which you've been to.
And that's a little town, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember having a customer in England, and they lived on the outskirts of London, near Hertford. And I said, where's your nearest hospital? Oh, the hospital that covers that is Stevenage. So if you don't know, that's about 32 miles away from Hertford. It's a big old distance. You imagine an ambulance has got to travel all the way if you need to go to hospital. That's insane. Yeah, so you're right. The availability of healthcare. If you need to see a doctor or a specialist, you'll get to see one. So yes, that's something you can do here. The
difference as well is if you need to see a specialist, so you'd see your GP first, which is easy if you've got a GP, obviously. But you'd see your GP first, and he'd say, yeah, you need to see a whatever specialist. Then you'd go and find one online, and then you just phone the secretary and say, I'd like to come and see him, and they go, all right, Thursday, all right.
Yeah.
And then that's it. You just go and see it. It's so simple.
One of the weirdest things like that really brought it to me was my brother had an operation on his hand. So he got diagnosed with something that makes your hand curl like that, and you can't straighten your fingers.
Yeah.
And Bill Nighy's got it actually. If you ever see a photo of him, his hands are like that.
Yeah.
But there is an operation, a specialist one you can have, and the best hand surgeon in Europe is in Nantes, which is not far from me. So anyway, he got his what do you call it? Consultation with the surgeon. Went down there and said, "Yep, no problem. We can do all that." How does a month's time sound? Because it wasn't super urgent. And Dave goes, "Yeah, no problem. That's fine." It got to 1 week before his surgery. He rang them up and said, "I can't come because there's something urgent going on. I really can't come in. They went, oh yeah, no problem. When do you want to come in? Oh well, how about the following week? Yep, okay, we do your Thursday. Is that all right? Are you going to stay overnight?
Yeah.
Well, might
You'd like
do.
a taxi to come and get you.
Yeah, and they do pay for
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they'll come and get you.
Yeah.
If you need it, bond
Yeah,
transport.
I mean, I've told the story a few times, but and I won't bore you with it now. But basically, I had a hernia operation, and they said, you know, do you want transport? I said, yeah, why not? And yeah, they laid on a taxi to pick me up from home and take me to the hospital. And then one of the differences is that the taxi doesn't just drop you off outside the hospital. So they actually take you into the hospital, take you up to the ward, hand you over to the appropriate individual, nurse or whatever, and and then brilliant.
It's brilliant. So that's another thing. Some other stuff more light-hearted than that. You can get a pizza from a vending machine any time of the day or night.
Yeah, I've not tried. I keep saying, actually, when Kelly's been over a few times, she said, "Oh, I have to try that." But yeah, I've not tried it.
It depends on the machine. I mean, so in our local town, village, I suppose, there's a pizza shop, and then 2 doors down, there's like a built-in-the-wall pizza thing. But it's actually the pizza shop makes the pizzas and puts them in the machine, and you can get 24 hours. And the machine, you can either have them cold for warming up at home, or you can pay for them to be warmed up, and then it's but it's done on the spot. The machine inside cooks it for you. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
I absolutely love it. I think it's such a good idea. Yeah. Also, you can get bread, can't you, from a vending?
Absolutely, yeah. We used to have where we are in this little village we are. You used to buy your bread from the village post office that was open 2 days a week. Well, I say 2 days. Right, 2 afternoons a week they'd sell bread. But since the post office closed, they put in a bread machine outside the Murray's office. So yeah, bread machine. But we have a lady who comes around on a Thursday. When we bought the house, she just turned up on a Thursday and said, "Oh, I've got you some bread." Said,
yeah.
Okay. And she's been coming ever since. Every Thursday morning, she about 10 o'clock, she drops off some of the loveliest bread. I could just eat the whole loaf easily.
The bread here is super amazing.
It always amazes me that you can buy a bread making machine here. Why on earth would you want to do that? You know, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, the bread here is super, isn't it? Really good. So I don't know if you tried it, but they do maize bread.
I've seen it. Yeah, I can't say I've tried it. I've seen
it. It's different, but it's lovely. It's something to try differently.
So would that be? I suppose that'd be gluten free. Would it be any? What would be the reason for having that? Just for the taste,
just different taste and texture. Try it; it's quite nice.
€euros,
but it's still 40% normal flour in there. So for all those watching, it's not gluten free as such.
No.
But my local supermarket does do gluten free bread, so you can get it.
Each boulangerie does its own specialist bread as well. Does its own speciality bread, not specialist. Speciality bread. So it'll have a particular mix of nuts or dried fruit or whatever. And I remember when we lived up in Normandy, and the speciality of the boulangerie in the village was this nut and fruit, or fruit and nut, and bread. Oh, it was. We'd buy it, and by the time I got home, half of it was gone. So I'll just have a little bit. It was lovely, delicious.
Excellent. Yeah.
Something else. Just to. I was talking earlier, so I took Charlie to his dog socialisation class this morning. I was talking to the people there, and we was talking about there's a big drive at the moment to make police gendarmes a lot more visible on the roads. For road safety, and so there's a lot of speed traps. They don't have to make themselves visible, so they can be hiding in a ghillie suit and just jump out at you. And and I was saying that when we did live up in Normandy, there was a town not far from us called Bagnols de l'Orne, which is quite a well-to-do town. They had a big lake and a big casino and that. And we had some family over, and we went to this. There was a really nice Italian pizza restaurant, strangely enough. Really nice restaurant there, and we was there quite a while. And when we came out, couldn't understand why there was no traffic. So we drive along, and what we didn't know was that in the time that that we had been in the restaurant, they shut off all the roads and put all barriers up to have a road race for cyclists.
Oh no!
So we're driving along. There's all these people behind the barriers looking at us as we're driving through this this town. And so, of course, all the exit roads are all blocked off. And we're driving along, and one of the organisers saw us driving along and opened up the barrier. We drove out, and I got immediately stopped by the gendarmes and breathalyzed. Fortunately, I didn't have anything to drink. But they don't have to have a reason here to stop you.
Interesting.
In the UK, as you well know, you have to have some fabrication of a reason to put a stop on. But here, they just because they want to.
Yeah, it's policing is done slightly differently because the gendarmes aren't actually police.
No, it's
military.
It's like a paramilitary sort of outfit, really, isn't it?
The real gendarmerie.
Yeah. Yeah. Provisional gendarmerie.
So it's interesting because one of the guys I work with, he's actually a police officer from somewhere up north, who's on sabbatical.
Okay.
So he can take, career break
for
years and up to 5. I think he's 2 years in, so we can extend it to 5.
Yeah.
So he's on year 2, but he wants to go back after year 3, because it's better for him financially for pensions and all that sort of stuff to carry on with that role rather than do what he's doing at the moment. But he's a really nice guy, and we talk about the differences of the police forces between the UK and France. But he says that the gendarmes are regarded by the police as road police.
Right. So when you say regarded by the police, regarded by the municipal police, or
yeah.
So
if there's a major incident or a murder, it wouldn't be the gendarmes that investigate that. So once you reach a certain level of crime, then the local police of the nearest big town will investigate it.
Right. Okay. Because don't the magistrates
the prosecutors
investigate crime as well?
Yeah. It's very complicated. I don't pretend to know anything about it.
Yeah.
So I just know.
Find out about that, actually.
It would be
interesting to find out about that, wouldn't it?
If he could speak English, then we could have him on as a guest, but he doesn't. So what was you going to do about that? So other stuff. I wanted to mention Neighbours.
Yes, Neighbours. Why is that?
Because you can pretty much go and talk to him.
Yeah.
Can't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, back in Dagenham, would you be going across the road to see if they've got any spare eggs from their chickens, or swap it for fruit and veg, or for evening dinner?
If I invited them for evening dinner, I'd probably have to put them through a metal scanner when they Come in and have a drug dog on standby.
Yeah. So I'm sure, and don't get me wrong, because I'm from Yorkshire and right out in the middle of nowhere. And yes, it's true. There are some places where you get along with your neighbours, and that would happen. But I reckon that they are few and far between. I
think those days are behind us, aren't they?
Small village in the back end of Yorkshire, and that didn't even back in the 80s, 90s was maybe the 80s, I guess. As soon as the 90s hit, maybe not, but certainly the 2000s, you wouldn't just go out and say to your neighbour, "Do you want to come over for a half a glass of wine?" Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
But here, and it's 2025. You could. I saw my neighbour today. Came home from work, 5 o'clock. Got out of the car. As I was coming in, he shouted me. I went over. Hello? How are you? And all this. I've got you some eggs for the weekend.
Nice.
So he's got loads of chickens and gave me some fresh eggs. And then at work, I got given a load of fruit from one of the factories we were in. They just have loads of fruit lying around. So I shared it with him. So, there's that kind of relationship going on.
Proper neighbours.
Yeah, and my mum, where she lives in a hamlet of about probably 10 houses, every year they have the hamlet, I guess, the fête de village, and they all come to one person's house each year, and it moves around the village, and they put on all the food, drink, and a bit of music and whatnot, and they all get round and have a chat, and they do that once a year.
Brilliant.
I cannot remember ever having seen or done that in the UK.
I think the last thing that I remember, and it shows my age here, was
the Queen's something or other.
The Queen's Silver Jubilee, yeah. It was 1977. I was 14? Yeah. 73. Yeah, 13 or 14, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that was me and my brother lived with me.
Were the Germans still flying over there now?
Yeah, that's it. Take down the big airships. Blimps, I don't know, that's what they called it. From the First World War.
So yeah, that wouldn't really happen, I guess.
No.
And I really like that sense of community spirit. I mean, I bet it's not everywhere. I'm sure the big towns don't bother with that, but I just think, for the countryside, it's pretty much where I am anyway. And also, my other house, which is in De Sèvres, which is more centralised in France, it's exactly the same there. Every August as well, the whole village gets around. They have that's another thing. They have producers markets where local companies who produce food or, for example, honey or get together and they have like a free market. You don't have to pay to set up. You just go to the mairie for every Thursday afternoon, and you can get all the local producers there. There's brewers, there's people who do baking, and there's all sorts. And that's every Thursday. That's not at the market. The market is on a Saturday.
Right.
This is producers, so it's local businesses opening, which is really good. Right. So don't get that.
It's like the local supermarkets, really. In the Marshall, I think we talked about this before. That I think they're all franchised, and they make a massive thing of using local produce.
Yeah. So sorry, I've talked.
No,
I've talked enough tonight. Go on, carry on.
No, they just, like I say, they've got one particular aisle that everything is within 25 kilometres. Down this one particular aisle, everything is produced within 25 kilometres of that store.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I went to the local supermarket on the way home, pick up a few things, and well, fortunately, they had a beer tasting session going on.
Yeah, yeah,
So all the local beers, they had people from the companies there, and they had like barrels as tables.
yeah.
You could just go up and try different beers, and obviously you're going to walk away with a few, aren't you? Because that's what they do it for.
Rude not to, yeah.
Yeah, so you get a lot of that as well.
Mm,
A lot of fetes and festivals that you don't get in the UK.
yeah,
I mentioned in some of the other videos, there's a medieval festival every 2 years here, and I
yeah,
volunteered at it. And anybody can volunteer. If you've
sure.
got one of these going on near you, just go in and say, "Can I help?" You
Mm,
don't need to fill any paperwork. It's not like the UK. You don't need to
no,
fill any paperwork out or anything
no, it
like
won't
that,
be,
prove anything or give your ID or anything like that.
it won't
Just
be a risk assessment, will it?
just can I help? And they'll go, yeah. And you just go, right, okay, what should I do? And that's
Yeah,
it.
brilliant, brilliant. Proper communities here.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And I'm sure that does exist to some degree in the UK, but not quite the same kind of thing.
mm,
So I remember, this is just an example. I remember driving down a road a couple of days, no, a week ago or so, and a tractor had come off the road and into one of the little ditches. It was totally
okay.
trailer. And another tractor from another farm had arrived to rescue the original tractor.
Mm,
But they're all hazard lights on, and they're all sat between the two tractors with a bottle of white wine and a few glasses.
yeah, trying to work it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's incredibly normal
yeah,
where I am. I mean,
yeah.
it's just all the time that
Actually,
kind
it is funny. There was an example of that sort of thing, and because of our backgrounds, you get so cynical of everything. That everyone's got an angle. You just assume that everyone's got an angle, and everyone's trying to,
scam you.
yeah. You're like, really,
Oh yeah.
really, yeah. So I think, we was on the way to the supermarket, and there was a guy. I think he must have been picking mushrooms or something. I don't know. Probably not those mushrooms, but the other sort. And he got himself stuck in a ditch. And I was driving the ML Mercedes at that point, so it's big old SUV. And so I said, because as we're approaching it, the fella's waving at me, and of course, first thing I think, it's well dodgy, Oh, there's no way I'm stopping, they're gonna pull a knife and shiv me or something, So, but Jane said, no, go on, you better stop. So I stopped, and just pulled the guy out, and I stood there chatting for 10 minutes with my best friend, and
Nice.
yeah, it was just a nice thing to do, and but if I was in the same situation in the UK, I probably wouldn't have stopped. Two swarthy looking gentlemen standing by the side of the road waving at me, you know what I mean?
You would not. No.
Yeah, in a forest. What could possibly go wrong there?
Yeah, I had something similar. Well, not quite like that. I was driving along and there was a lone woman with a car, and she was by the side of the road. And as I was approaching, she sort of waved me down, and I was thinking, do you know what? Not sure about this. So I
Yeah,
pulled over and stopped, and she goes, "Oh, my car's run out of fuel." I was like, "Okay, fine." And I said, "Look, I don't mind, but I'll go and get you some fuel,
yeah.
but you can't get in the car with me, and
No, that's it.
you
Just
just got to stay here. Get in the
open
car."
yourself up for dramas, yeah.
Exactly. I said, "But I'll go and get you some fuel." And she went, "All right." So I thought, hang on, what am I doing? I'm going to go and get some fuel with my own money, and so on and so forth. But then when I got back, she was there. I gave her the fuel, put it in a car for her, and it was about, I don't know, 10 euros worth of fuel, and she gave me 15 euros, and that was the end
Yeah,
of it. But she also opened the boot and said, actually, I'm a representative for this particular make of spaghetti from Super U. And she gave me
Right.
like a big bunch of boxes of this top end spaghetti.
Yeah.
So I went to work and I just gave it round to everyone and
This,
said, this is what we've done.
this
But
happened. Yeah.
but the feeling of there's something wrong here, it's a bit sketchy,
Yeah.
never leaves you from living in
No,
the
it
UK.
doesn't. No, that's right.
But it's
Yeah.
generally not normally the case here.
No. Perfect example today as well. So I took the Citroen. We've got a Citroen C4 cactus to have its CT done, control technique, which is like the MOT. I did ask on one of the videos what it is in America, and I did tell me, but I can't remember. Warranty something. Anyway, yes, I took it for its CT, and so it's while you wait, because I booked it in, so I was waiting there, and the guy come out and wanted to show me something, and he said it's not passed because one of the tyres has got an inside and an outside on the tyre, and the inside was outside.
So could you rotate it, I guess?
Well,
No,
one. Just one, yeah. So, because when we bought the car, they'd put 40 tyres on it, and obviously someone wasn't paying attention and put a tyre inside out, basically. So, so I said to him, this is the first CT I've done, He said, right, so you just go and get it fixed, and there's a date on the CT form, like the failure form, that you've got till that date to get it fixed and bring it back, and then you don't pay anymore. So I said, is there a tyre place around here? He said, yes, just down the road. So I went down there, and I said to the fellow, look, I've just explained to him. I said, look, there's a problem with the CT, and rather than trying to explain it in French, I said, just come and have a look. So yeah, they pronounced the P on Panu, which is quite funny, isn't it? But anyway, so I showed him, and he said, yeah, do that. And he said, €5. I said, yeah, brilliant.
Not much, a bit steep.
Yeah. So anyway, so he did it, and halfway through, I realised that I didn't have any cash on me. So, no. So I said to him, I don't have any cash, but I'll go and get some cash, bring it back. He said, yeah, no problem. And yeah, so that's what I did. I got the tyre spun round, so the inside was on the inside. I took it back to the CT station, and they did all the paperwork to pass it. Then went up to the cash point, got some cash out, went back, and actually give the fella €10 just because.
That's what I would have done. Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably not what he's expecting, but that's probably the done thing.
Yeah, that's right. But no, it's brilliant. So it was. I did all that in French as well.
Yeah.
And it was. I really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah.
To be put on the spot like that, and you just got to cope, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it was good.
It's literally the best way.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea of, when I came over, when I came over in 2019, I think I went to supermarket and I was buying just a bag of groceries, nothing important. And when I went through the till at the end, I thought, you know what, I just hope no one talks to me. And that feeling of like, I just don't want to talk to anyone because I don't know how to reply. And the woman said to me, which I now know, do you want a receipt?
Mm.
And I was like,
I've got nothing.
but she didn't speak any English, which is the case around here.
Yeah.
And
would she?
Exactly. And I didn't know what she was saying. And she kept asking and asking and asking.
Because that's her job, isn't it?
And it got to the point where she's now asking because she knows I don't know. And it was definitely that. Because now I know who she is, local knowledge. But at the time, I was super like not embarrassed, but I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what she's asking. Is she asking or saying something an action I need to carry out or do?
Yeah.
So you've got two choices. You can either try and fake it, which is what I did. I said no and walked off, which was the correct thing, I guess, in a way. I only said it.
Make it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Compare that now to today. My boss came in and said, all this is in French, I need to speak to you about a project I've got where we've got some micro inverters and we want them to integrate with a Victron system and be able to see the micro inverters on the VRM portal. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And technically I can do it as easy, but French, technically, I can understand what he's saying now, can process it in my head, and then, but my response is still not good, but I know what he's saying. And I find that you learn to understand people before you can respond, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So one last thing I want to say that you can do here that you can't really do in England, and that's the Mary. And this is quite important, I think, point of view. It's your first point of contact for everything.
For everything, pretty much, yeah.
And the thing here is they're on your side 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt you, but I think it is a luck of the draw whether you've got a proactive Marie or one who's just there to, to service his responsibilities.
To a degree, but if you go in and ask for something.
I've actually found that in the last 2 places that I've lived, I've actually found that the ladies in the office are more helpful than the actual Marie himself.
Oh yeah, I don't mean him. I mean the office of the Mary, basically.
Right. Yeah. See, that's the
not the person themselves.
That's the factor, isn't it? Yeah. So the 2 ladies, the ladies up, the lady that worked in the Marie up in where we lived up in Normandy, and the ladies that work here, they're brilliant. They just know everything, and just brilliant.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and this really gets me, the bodies like that, the Mary, Spank, who will deal with all the FOSS septiques and stuff.
Yeah.
The Consuel we deal with at work.
Yep.
The experts who are employed by Enedis to expertly. So once you get to a certain level of installation for solar panel systems, the Consuel out the game, they employ a direct expert that comes out and checks the installation. They are, all of them are on your side to start with.
Yeah. Yeah, they just want to help, don't they?
They want you to pass and they want you to get what you want. I've always found that. And I contrast that with, like, for example, the planning office in England or whatever. It's super hard to find a nice person in any of them. They're against you from the start. You're battling them from the start. Whereas in France, it's the opposite. Starting with the Mary. If you want to do something, 9 times out of 10, they're on your side. And they'll help you do it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So that for me was a big thing, when I was living in England, umpteen problems with the council for various different reasons. And it was all very, very petty and I remember getting a letter saying one of your neighbours has complained that your hedge overhangs the footpath and you should cut it more frequently, up until the point I sent them a document that showed that it was their hedge and not my hedge, and the council is responsible for cutting it, and I only did it because it was nice.
Yeah.
And then they were shut up after that. But, just get stuff like that all the time.
In a in a previous life, previous marriage, we got a visit from the local housing officer to say that I've had some complaints about your dog barking all day and all night.
All right.
I said, really? I said, I don't think so. He said, no, we've had the complaints. I said, who's complained? Well, I'm sorry, we can't say. I said, wait there a minute, mate. Wait there a minute. And I went and got the dog, and it was a Yorkshire Terrier. I brought it out. I said, there you go, there's a dog. It was about that long.
Yeah, I mean, but it's that kind of thing is completely the opposite.
Yeah.
So the Mary came round and dropped letters in all our letterboxes saying, look, if you live this close to the town centre, it's now a grant for you to repoint your house. We'll help you repoint it to improve the look
The look,
of
yeah.
the village centre.
Wow.
Oh, okay, thanks for telling me. No problem. And I remember when I get the broadband fitted out to go to the Mary and get us some document, and they went, oh, no,
I remember, yeah.
Of course, we'll do it for you, no problem. Boom, boom, done there and then as you wait.
Yes.
Which is unusual for France because bureaucracy takes a long time. But the Mary, local Mary, any questions you got about anything, just walk in there. There's normally someone behind the desk who's more than happy to help you.
Yeah, no, they are good. Yeah, there was a derelict property directly opposite the place we had up in Normandy, and I talked about maybe buying it, and just so that it wouldn't get built on, because it was going to be cheap as chips anyway. And I went to the Marie's office to find out who owns the various cadastral plots, and she gave me a list of I think it was 3 different people that own various plots, and one was in Leeds, and another one was in Paris, and I just thought, oh, mate, it's going to be a nightmare, isn't it? So I scrubbed around that idea pretty sharply.
But they help you, and that's
definitely, yeah.
That's what I want to get across.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of moving to France, or you're in France and you've got a question, it's not a trick to go and ask the Mairie. No. You wouldn't do it in a council in the UK because, well, you don't want to get on their radar, basically. But here, it's the opposite. So if you remember anything from this episode, and if you're still here, well done. It's your Mairie is, from the start, is on your side. Unless you do something to annoy them, they're on your side.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. So that's your takeaway.
That's it.
All right. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, that's good for me.
Brilliant. All right. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to give the video a thumbs up, that'd be great. Press the notification bell so that you know when there's new content. Share it on your socials, and maybe think about subscribing if you're not subscribed already. And all it leaves to say is goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from him.
Goodbye. Didn't cock it out.